How'd you end up working for the WWF?
Um, well, first I worked for WCW because I was in Florida.
Okay.
Um, I was in Florida in 88, I believe. 88, 89, I was in Florida. And they did a loop. NWA, WCW did a loop. And I met up there with Gary Capetta. And he said, "Would you like to come to the show?" I said, "Sure, I'll come around." Now, the thing is, I always had my gear with me, no
Okay.
matter. And it just happened that the Cuban Assassin couldn't make, I think it was a house show loop, uh, two or three shows or something like that. In any case, I was there and they were looking for a local guy to work with Mike Rotundo for a house show. And I think this was somewhere near Key West. So Gary Capetta said, "Well, I have a guy right here. He's trained, and he's one of the Johnny Rod's guys." And Kevin Sullivan said, "Well, can he work?" He said, "Yeah, he can work. I mean, he's been around. He's an indie guy, and well, let me take a look at him." And he looked at me and he said, "Okay, that's pretty cool." He's like, "You have your gear?" I said, "Of course I have my gear." He said, "Well, wrong, get it. You were working with Mike Rotundo tonight." So
Nice.
pretty much. And the funny story is that I didn't meet or see Mike Rotundo anywhere in the building, and I looked for him because traditionally you want to ask, you want to introduce yourself and say, "Well,
Sure.
sir, what would you like to?"
Right.
I mean, I'll do whatever you want. Well, I didn't see him until we were pretty much, how the match has ended when you hear the ding ding ding, and then the
Right.
win music plays. So I'm right by the curtain. There's no Mike Rotundo, you know. Suddenly I turned around and there he is, bigger than life. So I introduced myself. He says, "Yeah, we're working." Yeah. All right. Anything in particular? He said, "No, I'll call it in ring." So he actually goes out first, and that's when he was doing his Captain Mike um, character.
Not his most memorable gimmick. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, yeah, with the hat and everything.
Yeah.
So I I went out and I was surprised because he went out first and got a big pop, and then I go out and people are, "Who the hell are you? What is this, a midget match?" And that type of a thing. So I I get into I get in a ring and I believe the referee might have been the late Randy Anderson.
Got it.
He comes up to me to check me out. He said the finish is airplane spin. I said thank you, and everything else Mike called. uh, Gave my comebacks, this and that. We were in the ring, out of the ring, came back, and finally that airplane spin shot me off and spun me around 1, 2, 3. And Kevin Sullivan asked me, he said, "Will you stick around for the rest of the loop?" I said, "Of course I will." After the loop, he said, "Do you need to go back home?" I said, "No, I don't need to go back home. What do you need me to do?" He said, "We're gonna have TV um, somewhere. I think it was somewhere in Georgia. I really forget. So my first TV night was myself and another young man versus the Steiner brothers,
Okay.
and that went great. I worked with Rick and Scott, and it was your traditional squash job. Um, Scotty gave me the underhook tiger bomb, and you know everyone popped for that because at that time, not many people did that. And of course I took it like a champ because he's so strong,
Yeah.
and I can get up there, and everything looked great. So I pretty much got told to do TVs, and I got to work with the likes of Michael Hayes, Ric Flair. Uh, in fact, it was a pretty big angle between Flair and Sting, and the dudes with attitudes where they were trying to stop him because the stipulation was if he puts a hand on Flair before their title match, he will immediately be disqualified and he'll never have a title match again. So they did a pretty cool angle with that, which I was really happy with. And Ole Anderson booked that, and because he told me that I could gain sympathy and to make Flair look like a really bad guy and all that. So,
How was Flair in the ring?
who in,
How
in the,
was how was Flair in the ring?
oh, beautiful. I mean, everything was, and again, nothing was talked over because this was supposed to be kind of like he takes advantage of a young wrestler, just tortures him, and in order to try to taunt Sting to break the rule and eliminate himself from a title match.
Mhm.
So I just went right along with it and sold and had a lot of fun and gave me an opportunity, to show that I could sell and show pain and gain sympathy from the fans and all that. So that's where Ole said, "Oh, I really like this kid. Let me put him with a Vader, his very first TV."
Mm.
It did the very first TV with Vader, and that was great. And I was very proud of that because I knew of him from Japan, and I was the very first guy to wrestle him on TV.
Wow.
He had the smoke out of that big helmet,
Yeah.
and
Imagine traveling with that helmet. Imagine going on planes with that helmet.
yeah,
That must have been a pain in the ass, right?
I remember he. I think that he had someone with him.
Okay.
The, if you look in the background, there's a guy in a suit that's kind of walking around, and he has uh, like a box. It's sort of a remote control. And
Sure.
he was the guy that would
Okay.
make that smoke thingy happen. Activate the dry ice or whatever it is. So I
Right.
think that guy was in charge of the helmet because I think that guy actually designed the helmet for him. And the stipulation was that he would get paid and travel with Vader because later on Vader did not have that helmet. I didn't,
Right.
but I heard they had a falling out because he wanted too much money, and WCW thought it was a pain in the ass, and they said, you know what, you don't even need it because it was
Right.
over without it.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I got to work with him. I got to work with Mean Mark, managed
Yeah. I
by.
was gonna ask you about that.
I got to work with him.
Before you
Which,
go to me, Mark, but Vader though he was okay. He was snug, I assume, right? But did he take care of you, Vader?
Vader,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
He took care of you?
it was what was expected. I mean,
Right.
look, I feel that I was trained for that, and
Right.
I knew that I can't pick and choose who I'm going to work with. So it's either you work with whoever they book you against, or go home,
Right. Of
pretend to
course.
be a wrestler, cosplay.
Of course.
Because a lot of them, that's what they do. They cosplay. Nowadays, this new generation, I don't refer to them as professional wrestlers. They're simply cosplayers, and they work these shows, and they design their matches from A to Z.
Right.
Most of the times, it looks like shit. Everybody wants to cut their head open, and everybody wants to be a tough guy, and everybody wants to wear a T-shirt that says "fuck" on it.
Right.
It's that's basically what it is. But no, I expected him. I really expected to get crunched big time. But the match did not last very long, and he was obviously large, meaty. So it's kind of like running into a. It's like running into a padded wall,
Right.
and I didn't mind it. Same thing with when I worked with Sid. I knew what I needed to do, and I knew that I needed to be conditioned, and I had to be tough enough to work with this guy. You can't cower out because I've seen it. I've seen it many, many times. How you have the chalkboard and
Sure.
say so and so, Mike Morello versus so and so, Jason
Right.
Ivory. I've seen, more than one guy take their bags and leave.
Yeah.
When they had to work with like Sid or Vader or even a few others. And
Sure.
I never felt like that because that's what we're trained for. And kind of like if you know how they work, you do whatever you can to protect yourself.
Sure.
You know what's
Makes
coming,
sense.
and
Sure.
you know what's going to hurt, and if you can't take it, go home.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and I can't complain. The guys were great, and I think in most cases, if the enhancement talent, if they get hurt, it's a either they're scared and they do something, they hurt themselves, or B, they piss them off
Right. Sure.
in the locker room, then they get their asses handed to them.
Right. Sure.
They don't know how to behave. So that's basically it. They go they go when they're thinking they're superstars, or God forbid, telling one of these guys, "Oh, look, this is my hometown. How many comebacks?"
Right.
Oh yeah, there's a nice hospital bed there for you. So
Yeah.
they were all. I never had any trouble with anyone. And again, I worked with some big, hard hitting guys.
Right.
From
How was the Undertaker to work with?
beautiful.
He's-
Oh,
yeah.
amazing. I mean, absolutely amazing. It was. I expected, that he would be like in there, because
Right.
he's so talented. That
Yeah.
I everything looked so snug, and he's just so big, and he was always in such great condition.
Right.
And again, just so large, you would expect to feel, you barely felt him. Amazing. I mean, he's the one. And interestingly enough, I know that it was frustrated because WCW treated him like crap.
Right.
And he had, if anyone had every reason to be jaded and wanting to take his frustration out on someone, it was him, and he never did. A true professional, a true gentleman, that a man that had nothing to prove,
Right.
and that's why I'm very proud to have worked with him then, and then later on. Obviously, he's a legend, and then so
He did it right for himself.
yeah, beautiful, awesome. And then
Yeah.
later on, I worked for how did I get to WWF or E now? They needed some extras in
Talk to me about your wrestling school coming up.
wrestling school coming up in Vineland, New Jersey. You know where Vineland is?
Sure.
We have a very nice facility, and it's right next to a martial arts training center. And it's right off the main strip. What is the name of the?
It's actually Landis Ave.
Landis Avenue. Yeah, wonderful facility, and of course we're going to have our ring there, and we're getting all kinds of lighting, and I'm going to have my gym there to do personal training.
You'll have all the audio, all the
video,
video,
all the
TV
audio,
channels.
video. Again, lights, smoke cannons, the whole 9 yards.
We will be doing TV tapings on Saturday nights.
Saturday nights, yeah.
And then we will be doing birthday parties and weddings.
Birthday parties and weddings.
Weddings.
People have actually called and asked if we were going to be doing in-ring weddings.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
Jason, a big thing at wrestling school is the ability to run shows. You're going to be running shows from your actual wrestling school, correct?
Yes, we will. Yeah.
So guys are going to get on the job training right off the bat, wrestling in front of live people.
Yeah, ring time, and it's such a wonderful studio type feel.
If people want to learn about the school, if people want to reach you, where can they do that?
Well, pretty much.
They can reach you by telephone. The school's phone number is 570-618-1234. It can also be found on www.impactcentralprowrestlingdojo.com.